Hey guys, Walaman here, and welcome to your 13th episode of Adaptive, the video show for disabled gamers. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the lessons that can be learned from adaptive gaming. And what I mean by this is whether you're a player with a disability, or whether you know someone with a disability, or whether you're just tuning into the show, you've become a lot more aware recently of the struggles and difficulties that someone with a disability can encounter, and because of that, you just become a lot more aware of just in general, just human limitation. And I think that's really important because it teaches you some really important lessons. And I think the number one important lesson that you'll learn from adaptive gaming is very simple. It's that it's on one hand, it's not everyone is perfect, and put in that context, it seems really obvious. Obviously, everyone's not perfect. There's probably a small handful, maybe up to 100, if that, players that can really play the game perfectly. Um, and and that's being very generous. There might, some people would argue that there's none. So when phrased as not everyone's perfect, that seems very obvious. Um, but then to expand that, I think the thing that you have to think about is that not every player that you deem to be bad because they're only doing 30k DPS and LFR because they're standing in fire, whatever it is. Not every player that you deem to be bad is necessarily lazy, and that's an important distinction because I think a lot of people are very quick to say that, oh, if you're bad, you're probably just not trying hard enough. You're just not trying hard enough at the game. And I think that's something it's kind of a harmful mindset because it's not something that's very useful. Um, because everyone's human and everyone makes mistakes, but I think you become a lot more aware of that if you're playing with someone with a disability. If I tell you straight up, oh, I can't do this quick enough because I'm playing with one hand. That's my personal reason for some of my mistakes is, oh, I can't move out of things very quickly just because of the way I play. I try my best. I'm not going to sit there and stand in the fire the whole time. That's to me not acceptable. But I'm going to be a little bit slow, and it's something that I would make a guild that needs to heal me. I'd make them aware of that. And that's something that, whether I tell them or not, eventually the healers are going to figure out, oh, Walaman or oh, Valera stands in fire a lot. And, that could be something that's very easily jumped to, oh, you're bad. Walaman, you're bad. Why are you standing in fire so much? It's a very easy jump to make. Especially when it comes to rating, when it's progression, and when when little little things like that can add up very quickly to to one person in a 10 minute can mean the difference between a wipe and killing the boss very easily. And that's something. So then, because of that, it's it's you need to strike that balance between finding players who are going to be good enough to down the content and not being too critical of players. And I think that's a balance you become a lot more aware of when you're dealing with, as I said, people with disabilities. The other kind of lessons that I've really learned is that everything can be adapted. And that sounds really silly and it sounds really obvious, but everything can be adapted, um, especially in WoW. And that's one of the reasons I really love the fact that I'm playing WoW as a game, is because WoW is so popular. There are so many add-ons for it, and so many peripherals designed for it. I mean, MMOs in general all have amazing peripherals. I mean, I've given the example in a past episode of the different mice that have buttons on the side and that sort of thing. You can go back and look at those episodes. You can go back and even look at the episodes about certain add-ons. But my point is, WoW as a game is so adaptable, especially compared to other games. I mean, but really at this point, all games are very adaptable. Most games allow you to change your keybinds, which is very nice. To a point now where if a game didn't allow you to change your keybinds, you'd probably find that to be outrageous. And I think it's good that we have that adaptability. We can change things, and I think that's something as even a player without a disability, you can become aware of. You can tailor your key binding to the way that you play, and I think that's really really important. And it really can help anyone become a better player. Is making sure that they are not just blindly throwing themselves at the game, but that they're really tailoring their game to be what they need it to be. I found out recently, or not found out, I've been aware for a long time that one of my weaknesses in games is tracking dot timers or hot timers when they're over about 10 seconds or so. Under about 10 seconds, I can keep it in my head very quickly. It's very in front of me and I can pay attention to it. But over about 10 seconds, I tend to get lost in my rotation. And that's got nothing to do with being an adaptive gamer in any sort of way. That's just a fact of being Walaman, of just the way that I am. It's something I'm not great at. And so what I've done is I've gone and looked at different add-ons, specifically weak orders. There's tons of add-ons that you could use. One that I've heard mentioned a lot is Need to Know. I actually really need to look at that. But there's tons of add-ons out there that you could use to to present information in a way that becomes more accessible to you. And I think that's really, really important as something to remember, is that as a gamer, you can adapt the game to you. You can, change your keybinds so that, if you're running WASD for your movement, you can keybind things to the buttons around WASD. You can, I mean, obviously Q and E are strafing, but like you could keybind things to R and F and that sort of thing. Um, you could use, different setups. You can use gaming mice. You can use various things that'll make the game easier for you to play, and I think that's very important. I know some people who try to play the game um, with standard key binding setup and with no add-ons, and they will try to make everything work for that, regardless of you know whether that suits them or not. If that's something that suits you, go for it. That's fine. That's a way of playing the game. But if you're really struggling with it, if you really feel like you need to adapt to that, that's something you need to do. You need to go out and look at different key binding setups. Maybe keybind stuff for the numpad. I don't know, what the setup is that'll work for you. But you gotta go find it, and you gotta really look for it and figure it out. And I think that's very important. And it's something that's very easily forgotten um, with a lot of people that play games. Is some things are very obvious. Everyone says, oh, you need to go get DBM. Oh, you need to go get recount. That's very obvious. But really looking at the add-ons that'll help you become a better player, um, you really need to pay attention to those, because I mean, I know I play in a crappy computer. I know it can slow down your computer, but I think like I mean, obviously there's a limit here, but I think for the most part, add-ons will have enough functionality that it'll be well worth the added strife of having to keep them updated, having to have a little bit more lag, those sorts of things. Um, so I think that's something that I would urge everyone to really do. Look at the add-ons that you use and make sure that they're the ones that are right for you. And make sure that they're really doing what you want them to do. And if there's anything in the game that you feel like you're lacking on, see if there's something that can help you with that, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, oh, I'm not good at this, how can I get better at this? That's something I think a lot of people are afraid of, is they're afraid of saying that they're not perfect. And because of that, it becomes very hard for them to get any better, because they're afraid to acknowledge their imperfections. And I think that's something that is can actually plague gamers with disabilities, especially because they're afraid to acknowledge their disability, and they're afraid to say, yes, I play with one hand. Yes, my eyesight is bad, and go with and know that there's things out there that can help them with that, because they feel like a lot of people feel like Add-ons are a crutch. That's the term that I hear a lot. Um, and what I would say is, if you've got a broken foot, why aren't you using a crutch? Um, I think that's an analogy that can be a little bit sensitive for disabled gamers, because obviously, like, yes, there are people who actually have physical disabilities and need to use, you know, physical things that help them. But at the same time, using that as purely an analogy, if you've got something that you're struggling with, why wouldn't you get something that helps you? There's no reason not to, and so I would urge everyone to go out and do everything that they can to make their gameplay better. Whether that's an add-on, whether that's a gaming mouse or a gaming keyboard or a Nostromo, whatever it's gonna be. I really urge everyone to take that lesson from disabled gamers and really go out there and do what you need to do to get better at the game. To the extent that it's still fun for you. Obviously, if setting up an add-on is so frustrating that it's not fun, then play the game. But generally, they're simple enough to set up that it's the kind of thing you can get done very quickly and get back to playing the game, and get back to having a lot of fun, and probably have more fun because you're less subconscious about your self-conscious rather about your performance. So thanks guys for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next week.